Ananda. It snowed for the first day this year here. It's already snowing in Ypsilanti.
It has, but not too much.
We're praying it stays like that.
You guys are hardcore there. Intense place. Okay. Gora Graganya Ganago Chagoloruharam Goranga Gura Tamagopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Goranga Hridoya Dadiya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namure Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidana Padama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Judi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Bapahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So nice to see everybody again. So we're on chapter 7 of Embankment of Separation from the new Embankment of Separation, which has 3 new chapters. So previously this was chapter 4. And in our last session we read 1 paragraph. Maybe we'll read a little bit more in this session. Let me go ahead and put this on the screen. Let's see here. There it is. So I'm just going to paraphrase. I'm going to ask some other devotees to outright read, but sometimes it's kind of nice. You can read along while I'm paraphrasing. I think it's nice to have some paraphrasing. So Guru Maharaj, when he speaks about pramana, and as Ujjwala was mentioning last session, I really appreciated your comments about how he likes Shastra pramana. That gives me a lot of happiness. Guru Maharaj once told us, he said, if you can't quote Shastra, don't tell them you're my disciple. And once there was one senior devotee, one of his godbrothers, who later took sannyas, who was sitting in the front of the class, and Guru Maharaj said, so what is this verse? And he said, well, I don't know. And Guru Maharaj said, he's a cheater. He's a cheater. he doesn't know this. So that's a little strong. I'm certainly not such a person who can quote all types of pramana. But it's very, very important. And sometimes devotees, they think, what is a necessity of quoting Shastra? Or if they quote Shastra, what we're looking in front of us at the screen now, they'll say in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, he whom Srimad Bhagavatam describes as Nanda Sutta, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is described, descended to earth as Chaitanya Gosai. Well, I'm sorry, Chaitanya Charitamrita doesn't say anything like that at all. Chaitanya Charitamrita is in Sanskrit and Bengali. There's no English things in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When the devotees, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he translated in Prabhupada's order the Bhagavad Gita into Bengali. When they first went to print it, they decided that it was too expensive for common people, so they wanted to cut the costs. And so they thought, well, we'll cut out the Sanskrit verses and just give the Bengali translation of the verses. And when they did that, there was, as we say in America, a hue and cry. There was a lot of complaints from especially the pundits in West Bengal, and they said that this is not Bhagavad Gita. This may be a book describing Bhagavad Gita, but Bhagavad Gita begins with Dharma Chete Kuru Chete Samaveda Yutsavaha Mamakascha. That's Bhagavad Gita. This is something in Bengali. It's a different thing. So I've always taken that to heart. And although I am not a Sanskrit pundit or a Bengali pundit, I read a little Bengali, understand a little Sanskrit, maybe more than your average ISKCON devotee. So I'm a big frog in a small pond. But it doesn't mean very much. But I always include the Sanskrit in Bengali because Guru Maharaj liked that. And because Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Bhubaneswar in... Nice to see you, Himanti. No problem being late. It happens. In 1977, Srila Prabhupada told my Guru Maharaj, he said that the function of the Acharya is Sampradaya Rakshana. That's the exact word for word what Prabhupada said. That we should protect our Sampradaya. And how do we best protect our Sampradaya? We should try to preserve the Bengali and Sanskrit verses. And so I'm giving a little bit of an introduction in this regard now because Guru Maharaj quotes a lot of Sanskrit and a lot of Bengali here. And I know some devotees, even they kind of roll their eyes and what's the point? You know, you just put the English translation, Prabhu, that's the same thing. But it's not the same thing. There's some mystical sound vibration in these Bengali verses from our acharyas and Sanskrit verses. Moreover, prati shloki, prati akshari, nanatakoi, in each and every verse and every syllable, there's unlimited meaning. So it's really, we want to protect our sampradaya, so we should quote verses. We should quote so that, to encourage devotees that this is a proper pramana. And we should also quote to encourage devotees to go deeper into our tradition and maybe even take some time to learn at least some Sanskrit or some Bengali and to really rub some camphor in everybody's eyes a little bit to say shame, shame. If you become a Muslim, it's a common thing. You may be an American and the only foreign language, only foreign words you know how to say are taco and enchilada. As a good American, maybe you know how to say pizza also. That's two languages you're getting approached to. But if you become a member of Islam, then so many of them will learn to read the Quran in the original language. So why can't devotees learn to read Devanagari script, learn to read some Sanskrit? It's not that hard. And I'll tell you, it's really very beautiful. It really does a lot for your consciousness. Okay, that was my little preaching to everybody as an introduction. So we're paraphrasing some of these verses. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, let me check here. This verse is, this is from CCID 2.9. And Kaviraj Goswami says, Nanda Sutta Boli Jana Bhagavati Gai. That person who, Nanda Sutta, who's the son of Nanda Maharaj, Boli, people are saying, Jana Bhagavati Gai. You should understand he's the Supreme Personality of God. Gai means to sing, what we speak about. Say Krishna Avatirna Chaitanya Gosai. He's Krishna himself, but Avatirna, he's descended to this world as Chaitanya Gosai, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. E Gora Chandra Jabi Jamila Gokule. in a previous Janmila, in a previous Yuga, the same Gaurachandra appeared in Gokul as Krishna. Sishu Sange Grihe, and as a Sishu means a small child. Sange means he was his friends in the company. Grihe, they were going to different houses. Krida means to have some pastimes or have some fun. Kore Bule, they were going about. Bule means to move about, to roam about. They were moving about all these different houses in the company of all these children. Therefore, Sri Damodar Goswami said, Nomi Krishna Sarupam. Famous verse that appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nomi Krishna Sarupam. That I offer my obeisances to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna. So Guru Maharaj is starting off with this point that Gaura is Krishna. And the special characteristic of Gaura Sarupa is Radha Bhava Duti Suvali Tam. He has appeared assuming the mood and complexion of Radha. Now this is what Guru Maharaj is really getting into in this chapter, and how it is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna. And it's something that we should think about. I've given some thoughts to this, and I have some, you've heard me speak about this quite a bit before, some of you, especially Vana Biharani. You may recall some of the things we say. Maybe I'll repeat some of that. So this is his special characteristic, Chaitanyakyam Pakatamaduna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam. Dvaya means two, that's Radha and Krishna. Two combined together appears one. And it's Chaitanya Chandamrita. Now, Guru Maharaj mentions Chaitanya Chandamrita. It's interesting. Chaitanya Chandamrita is one particular Gaudiya literature by Prabodhananda Saraswati, of course. But one special characteristic of this particular literature is it has a lot more stress on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as being a combined form of Radha and Krishna. I'm just trying to adjust the screen size here. That looks good right there. Okay. Krishna Kun, is that your phone? Okay. Prabodhananda Saraswati Pada said, Eki Bhuta Vapur Avatu Vo Radhaya Madhavasya. Let that Eki Bhutam Vapur, the combined form of Radha and Madhav, protect you. And what is that form of Gora? Goravo, Gorakopi, Braja Biharani Bhava, Magnas Chakasti. Gora is he who feels the pangs of separation from Krishna. In the same mood as the damsels of Braj Bhumi, Sakshad Radha Madhuripu, Vapur Bhatti Goranga Chandraha. So all of these verses are from Prabodhananda Saraswati's Chaitanya Chandamrita. And this verse, Sakshad, means directly. Sakshad Radha Madhuripu, Vapur Bhatti Goranga Chandraha. That Mahaprabhu, that moon-like Mahaprabhu, his Vapu, his form is directly Sakshat Radha Madhuripu, the combined form of Radha and Krishna. So why don't I stop reading there for a minute? And let's see, Himanti, would you like to read some?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, sure, where can I start? From Krishna Lila?
Yeah.
Okay. Krishna Lila is Gaura Lila. Gaura Lila is Krishna Lila. There is no difference between Krishna Lila and Gaura Lila, just as there is no difference between Nami and Nam. Nami is Krishna himself, and Nama is the name of Krishna. In Tattva, Krishna is not different from his name. However, in Sri Krishna Namastakam, Srila Rupa Goswami has said, Purvasmat param eva hanta karunam. Although there is no difference between Nami and Nam, still of the former and latter, the latter is more merciful than the former. That means Nam is more merciful than Nami. Similarly, there is no difference between Krishna Lila and Gaura Lila, but Gaura Lila is a more merciful Lila. Therefore, it is known as Audarya Maya Lila. Audarya means magnanimous. There are two parts of Krishna Lila, Madhurya and Audarya, sweetness and magnanimity. Gaura Lila is Krishna Lila, and Krishna Lila is Gaura Lila. But in Gaura Lila, this Audarya is predominating, and it is Kripa Lila, a more merciful Lila. This is the only difference, nothing else.
So again, we should try to understand the purpose of the author, understand the purpose of this book, because it's important. We always want to know why somebody's speaking to us. What is their point? What is that echo in the background? Krishna Kun, your computer is off. It may be picking up some sound. Guru Maharaj is wanting very much. Prabhupada told him that he should preach to the devotees. And he's wanting very much for the devotees in our movement to understand these deep aspects of Gauranga Mahaprabhu's Leela. And although so many ISKCON devotees, we appreciate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like anything, and they're great devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They dedicated their lives to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But as we were mentioning in our last session, Mahaprabhu didn't come only to give vegetarian cooking, higher taste cookbooks, and teaching us about reincarnation. And we should learn something about a whole nother aspect of our Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, which is this very esoteric teachings and position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Satyaraj Prabhu read Embankment of Separation, he wrote some review of the book, and he said this is the first time in our ISKCON society that we've seen a devotee write something about the esoteric position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's something that Guru Maharaj very much wanted to give. And this first sentence you see here on the screen, this is a real classic of our Guru Maharaj. Krishna Leela is Gaura Leela is Krishna Leela. And he would say it over and over again, just like it was a mantra or something. And in fact, oftentimes he would use the word parishishta. Parishishta, some of you have heard me speak about this before. Parishishta means an appendix, just like you make a book. Let's see, here's a book that we put together, Pariprashna. We finished the book. The book is all complete, but there was something more that we needed to include in the book. So we made an appendix. That's a parishishta in Sanskrit. And in particular, we felt in this new edition that we should write something about Guru Maharaj's comments about the necessity of hearing from the lips. So we wrote an article called Hearing from the Lips with lots of pramana. And it expands the subject matter that's in the book. It's a continuation of the book. The book is complete in one sense by itself, but in another sense it's not complete. This other thing needed to be said. This other thing's not part of the book, but it is part of the book. That's an appendix. That's parishishta. So Gaura Leela is a parishishta or appendix of Krishna Leela. It's not necessary, but it is necessary. Krishna is Purna, he's complete, but at the same time, we know, as Guru Maharaj will discuss maybe in this chapter, how Krishna has three unfulfilled desires, Shiradaya, Pranaya, Mahima, Kiddhisovanayaiva, etc. And how, therefore, Krishna Leela was incomplete because he wasn't fully satisfied. So he came again as Gauranga Mahaprabhu to fully relish those three desires that he wasn't able to satisfy in Krishna Leela. So these two are the same. They're non-different. We don't see any difference between Krishna and Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and that's an important point. It has a lot of depth to it. It's not just that we read in Krishna book about Krishna, we read about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. We say something, but there's reasons. If you study Krishna Leela deeply, then you'll see that there was some ways that Krishna wasn't fully satisfied. And he's told the gopis, Napariyeham, Nirvadya Samyujam Swasadu Krityam Vibudaya Sapiva. that I don't know how to repay you. I made this promise, ye tamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. I always reciprocate with people however they approach me, but with you, I don't know how to do that. And so if we study deeply in Krishna Lila, we'll find this, and our acharyas, our Gaudiya acharyas have revealed that Krishna wasn't fully satisfied. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Adi Lila chapter 3, he speaks about how Krishna came and Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna said that Mamana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Sarvadharmam Pratyaga Mamikam Sharanambraja. Just think of me, become my devotee, surrender everything to me. Krishna spoke like this. But Kaviraj Goswami reveals very astonishingly that Krishna thought this is not enough because I'm just being a theoretical speaker. And it's not enough just to come and tell someone, you should not eat chocolate. It's really, really bad. You shouldn't eat sweets. And then if they see you going down and munching out on a bunch of chocolate bars or something, it just doesn't work. We have to live what we speak. So there has to be some practical example. As I love to quote, one of my favorite quotes from St. Francis of Assisi, he told his followers to preach. And he said, and if necessary, you also use words. So real preaching means by our behavior. And that's a principle that we find very deeply in our Gaudiya line. Very deeply because it's there with Krishna. Krishna himself is thinking, I'm just a theoretical speaker. It's not enough. I need to come and set a practical example. So he comes again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Guru Maharaj is using his two phrases here, Madhurja and Odarja. These are two parts of Krishna Lila. They're non-different. Both are parts of Krishna. Madhurja means sweetness. Odarja means magnanimity or kindness, mercy. Both aspects are there in Krishna Lila. And this Krishna Lila is also Gora Lila. But in Gora Lila, this Odarja, this mercy, is prominent. And therefore Guru Maharaj uses example from Rupa Goswami's Namastakam Purvasmat Parameva Hanta Karunam Tatrapi Janimahi, that there's no difference between Nam and Nami, but at the same time there is some difference. The holy name of Krishna is more merciful than Krishna himself. As Fakir Mahaprabhu used to tell us, that you may be in the hospital and you're very, very sick. You're lying in the hospital bed dying, and you're in an unclean condition. You're vomiting and passing stool and urine. You can't go to the deity, and even if the deity was there, you couldn't touch the deity. You're in an unclean position. But Krishna is so kind that he appears as the holy name. So the deity won't come to you in that condition, but the holy name will come. And so in the same way that there's no difference between the holy name and Krishna, there's also no difference between Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Krishna. But at the same time, there is a little difference. The difference is that Gaura Lila is more merciful. So Ujjwala, would you like to read a little bit from the next paragraph, only those?
Only those who have performed a huge amount of pious deeds, Krita Punya Rashi, can understand this Gora Tattva. Such a person will surrender unto the lotus feet of Gora. He will get the mercy of Gora and develop bhakti at the lotus feet of Gora. Thereby, the ocean of nectarian prema emanating from the lotus feet of Radharani will rise in his heart. Then he drowns in that ocean. Only then is it possible to understand this Gora Tattva. Otherwise, there is no possibility.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came for two reasons, his own personal reason, and a second reason is for the Yuga Dharma and for others. And therefore it's called Gona, because it's done for others. Gona means secondary. Mukhya means for himself. For himself, he wanted the taste. Rasasvada, as we'll see in the next verses, it says here, Lila Rasa Aswadita. Aswadita means to relish or to taste. This is his personal purpose in coming. And the amazing thing is that he's tasting this, and he's so merciful. because there's a special quality of in a drunkard. A drunkard doesn't think about formality. The drunkard doesn't think he has to show his ID card or talk about, what kind of degree he has in the university, whatever. He just wants to be friends with everybody. He doesn't think I have to fill out any forms for your friendship or anything like that. So with Krishna, there's some formality. Yegatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyam. We have to approach him in a certain way. But with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with Krishna, there's some formality. With Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's no formality. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's broken all the dams, and he's freely giving this love that Srimati Radharani has herself. He's come, Krishna's come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to steal that bhav, and then when he tastes it, he becomes completely intoxicated. He becomes a drunkard. And in the mood of a drunkard, he is freely giving this to everyone. Would you lunch? You read a little more, please. Gora Tattva.
Gaura Tattva has been explained by Srila Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Would you like me to skip the Bengali, Prabhu, or should I read it also?
Your call. I don't mind it. If I want to focus on it, I'll go back to it. If you want to skip it, it's okay.
Okay. Sri Radha is the full power, and Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. The two are non-different, as evidenced by the revealed scriptures. Thus, Radha and Lord Krishna are one, yet they have taken two forms to enjoy the mellows of pastimes. Assuming the mood of Radharani and the complexion of Radharani, Krishna appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Chaitanya Goshai is Krishna, who is the son of Nanda Maharaj, the embodiment of rasas and amorous love personified.
I'd like to just mention here, it was clear to me, I'm trying to understand my Guru Maharaj, it was clear to me that he wanted devotees to contemplate how Radha and Krishna are one as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's clear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and other acharyas did that. Now, as I've gone along in my practice and discussions, exchanges with different Gaudiya Vaishnavas, I've come to find out that some Vaishnavas have a little different understanding about this than most of our ISKCON and maybe Gaudiya Math devotees do. Generally, when we speak about Radha and Krishna becoming one as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we do kind of just think they just kind of like merged together, melted together, and they become one. But especially the devotees in the line of Advaita Acharya, they take exception to that. They don't appreciate that concept of oneness, and they say there's some difference. So I just want to comment on this, and I want to be very open and frank in my comment. I don't want to present that this is something that I've realized. Rather, I'd like to openly say that it's something which different Vaishnavas see in different ways. I know Mana's heard me speak about this quite a few times, and maybe some of the others also. But still, I'd like to repeat it. It's something worth contemplating. How is it that Radha and Krishna are one? Clearly, Guru Maharaj wanted us to think about that. In our last sessions, we were speaking about how, 2 sessions ago, how Ramananda Roy, why did he faint? Because he saw Radha and Krishna becoming one, although he is Vishaka Sakhi. He's seen Radharani, he's seen Krishna, he's seen Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what was so extraordinary? Why did he faint? He fainted because he'd never seen his Bhavan Milan in the act of happening, this union in the act of happening, Radha and Krishna becoming one. That was very astonishing for him. So what does that mean when we read that? I personally like to be a little bit slow about these things, and because in the Gita, Krishna says that pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam. This is really something which is meant to be practically realized. And we have all these shastric statements to give us encouragement and to help us in our discussions by quoting pramana and quoting authority. But at the same time, ultimately, we have to see it ourselves. So I haven't. But I see, for example, in the verse we were just citing, Shiradaya Pranaya Mahima Kidisovanayaiva Swadyoyina Buddha Madhuri Makidisova Madir Sokyam Chashamana Baba the Kidisam Vetiloba Tibaba Jasamajini Sachi Garba Sindhu Harindu. It speaks about Krishna and how Krishna's come to satisfy these 3 desires. these three things in connection with Radha, or another verse which Guru Maharaj is just citing here above, that Radha Bhava Dyuti Sivalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. That verse I found very interesting. How is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Radha and Krishna? That's our question. So Radha Bhava Dyuti, there Sri Damodar Goswami is saying that Radha Bhava, the mood of Radha, and the duty or the complexion of Radha, Nomi Krishna Sarupam. He's Krishna Sarup, he's directly Krishna. But on the outside, covering him, is the mood and complexion of Radha. This is such a very, very subtle and intricate discussion. We were discussing some with a group of scholars recently, devotee academic scholars, about what it means when we hear things like Ramananda Roy is a combined incarnation of Vishaka, of Arjuna Yasaka, Krishna's friend, Arjuna the cowherd boy, Arjuna the Pandavas, and Arjuna Gopi, 4 different personalities in one. And devotees are really trying to understand this. One devotee scholar was writing some paper on that. And we were having a lively discussion, and I was strongly putting forth that I don't, because he was saying that it's inconceivable and that the souls merge together. And I just personally, and what I'm trying to do with all of you right now is just to make all of you think. Not that I'm trying to get you to think in a personal, particular way. But for me, I had a problem with that. And I'm just explaining our discussion as a example to encourage you to think on this. My hesitation was I've never heard about 2 jiva souls merging as one. And that really, especially for some of our friends in the Sri and Madhva Sampradayas, they really, really would not like that. They're very staunch about this anti-Mayavad stuff. So then how do we understand that all these personalities are there and they're described as Ramananda Roy? My strong suggestion to him, based on many different things, which we'll find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in different writings of our Goswamis and recent acharyas such as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, is that they're Avesh. There's some Avesh of Arjuna Saka, Arjuna Gopi, Arjuna Pandava, and perhaps mainly the main personality is Vishaka Saki. But there's some Avesh, there's some potency of each one of those personalities. And to support that, I was citing how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in one article, he says that the disciple is a separable constituent of the guru. As some of our friends in Southern Illinois used to say, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Sorry, repeat that, Madhavananda Prabhu.
Yeah, we'll repeat that. That's quite a statement. The disciple is a separable constituent of the guru. It's like, oh my God, you get a headache. And why is he saying this? Is this Mayavad? What does it mean? But it becomes clear if you study that article, which I could share if anyone's interested. It's clear by studying that article that the disciple becomes Avesh of the guru. And some of the guru's potency, some of his Shakti comes into that disciple, as Bhaktivinoda elaborates further in Harinam Chintamani, as is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur famously sings Sakshat Darit Vinastamasa Shastar, that he's a manifestation of Krishna because he has this Avesh, this Shakti. And as we read in, I don't remember what chapter, I think at Adi Lila chapter 11, or maybe it's Antu Lila chapter 11, of Chaitanya Charitamrita, when it speaks about how Mahaprabhu manifests in 3 different forms. Directly, he comes as Avesh, and he appears in a devotee in the form of Avesh. So this Avesh concept is very common for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And the more I contemplate this, I don't see anywhere that directly describes that Radha and Krishna merged together in the sense that both their bodies became one And but it's really a very difficult thing to speak about, because they don't have material bodies, and their emotions are non-different from themselves. You can't distinguish Radharani's bhav from Radharani's toenails or Radharani's hair. Her hair is a manifestation of her bhav, her love for Krishna. So it's a very subtle thing. And I wanted to contemplate it in this regard here. And the only reason I really want to say this is I want to protect all of you and assist you if you meet some other Vaishnavas. I think it's helpful to be broad-minded until we come to that point where we're realizing something ourselves. And if Krishna comes and you see Radha and Krishna becoming one, and you see how that works, then you can write a book about it. Then you can speak with authority about it. But otherwise, you're just a theoretical speaker, and we may quote some shastra, and we may have an opinion. That's fine. Everybody has opinions. But we should be careful, and we should be thoughtful. And this is a quality that I find in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It's something which sometimes devotees protest. They say you shouldn't speculate, Prabhupada said it. But at the same time, if you read in Srila Prabhupada's books, he'll say things like, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this, but Jiva Goswami says this. And he'll present different opinions, because there are different understandings amongst different Vaishnavas. Our job is to try to reconcile both, and not to try to just claim that one particular way is the best. So anyway, this is what you call pontificating. The pontiff is the Pope. When someone gives a long lecture, that's called pontificating. So I'm going to stop pontificating and ask Bana Biharni if she'd like to read a little bit now.
Sure. Where are we?
He who is the son.
He who is the son of Nanda Maharaj came as the son of Sachimata. Vrajendra Nandana Ye Sachi Sutta Hoila Se. He is Krishna, therefore he is Sringara Rasaraj, the king of conjugal mellows. That is a fact. But when he assumes the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani, he appears in one body as Gauranga. Narahari Sarkar has said,
Chaitanya Mahapunai Punya Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam Tayo Prakasha Dekatra Krishna Chaitanya Uchate.
Bhagavan Sri Krishna appeared as Chaitanya, who is Bhakti Naipunya, the last limit of bhakti. If the last limit of bhakti is added to Krishna, then he becomes Chaitanya. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Advaya Jnana Tattva Hara Tattva Vastu. The one supreme absolute truth without duality. But when you speak of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he is Krishna plus Bhakti Naipunya, the last limit of bhakti. This is added.
So, by the way, I part of one of my services for Guru Maharaj personally was that I would bring a big bag. I mean, when I say big, I mean like it was probably about 50 pounds, 25 kgs of books to class every day. One volume Chaitanya Charitamrita, one volume Bhagavatam, and so many books of our Goswamis. And when Guru Maharaj was giving class, I would look verses up for him in the Sanskrit and Bengali, and I would read out the English on his order. So that was always a service that I did, and I'm still doing it today. Some of the devotees contacted me recently and were looking for a verse that he was quoting from Padma Purana, which I managed to find. When I find a verse that Guru Maharaj quoted, that's like a real festival for me. But this one particular verse, and I also mentioned in this book, per Guru Maharaj's orders, we were very careful, and we checked all the verses from the original Sanskrit and Bengali texts, and checking the diacritics and making sure the spelling and everything is correct. But this one verse, this is one of the very few verses, the only verse I can even think of right off the top of my head, in Guru Maharaj's books that we were not able to find. And that's this verse by Narahari Sarkar. Now, I found a number of writings of Narahari Sarkar, but this verse doesn't seem to appear in any of those. I don't know where it's from, but it's a very beautiful verse, and it's something he was very attached to, you can see. So he's speaking about how when Krishna comes as Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu is Bhakti Naipunya. Bhakti Naipunya means the last limit of bhakti. I remember there was one of Prabhupada's disciples who was a little bit of a grumpy kind of person. He has some affection for me, but he's a little kind of angry. He used to be a sannyasi, and he's had his ups and downs, and he's a little cranky kind of person. And I remember him coming to Bhubaneswar one time and complaining. He said, what is this Bhakti Naipunya, the last limit of bhakti? Last limit of bhakti. Bhakti has no limits. Nonsense. But that's the same point Guru Maharaj is making, that bhakti has no limits. But if bhakti has a limit, that limit is Radharani. If bhakti can have a last limit, that limit is Srimati Radharani. And so when Krishna comes in a combined form with Srimati Radharani, then he becomes Bhakti Naipunya, the last limit of bhakti. So why don't we go ahead? And Viren Prabhu, would you like to read from Combination Means Union?
Sure. Sachinandan Gauranga is Radha and Krishna combined together in one body. Radha Krishna Eki Bhutanga. That means in Gauranga Swarup, two opposites are combined. What are the two opposites? They are Sambhog and Vipralam, union and separation. Two opposites are combined in one container. That is Chaitanya. It is not present in Krishna. It is with Gaura only. This is a very deep purport. When we speak of Bhakti Naipunya, to what type of Bhakti do we refer? In this regard, Bhakti refers to Nitya Siddha Sadhya Bhakti. That is Prema Bhakti, no other Bhakti. So the purport is that Bhakti Naipunya is the last limit of Prema Bhakti. And what is that? This is Madhanakya Mahabhav, the last limit of Bhakti. Bhakti Naipunya is only with Srimati Radharani. You will never find this Madhanakya Mahabhav elsewhere. So Krishna Chaitanya, and sorry.
Good.
So Krishna Chaitanya is Krishna with Bhakti Naipunya added. Varshabhanavi Radharani is Mahabhavi Chintamani Swarup, embodiment of Mahabhav. And Krishna is Rasaraj Purna Brahma Vrajendra Nanda Shri Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. When these two combine together, that is Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Guru Maharaj is so proud in some transcendental ways. I remember once he was speaking about his Mangalacharna. He says, we have our special Mangalacharna. And you can see like a child, he was so kind of proud of it. And his pride is not a mundane kind of pride that we want to avoid, but his pride was there for Srila Prabhupada. And his pride was there for serving. And he liked very much to use this Vaishnava Bhasha. This language is Vaishnava language. And so, and there's a special flavor to it. And by using this Vaishnava language, it also, it gives some authority. And it gives some, as we were commenting in the beginning, it gives some impetus, some inspiration to devotees in our movement to understand our roots and to quote authority. It's a really important thing. So now Guru Maharaj is adding an extra point in this paragraph here. Let's move back and look at it a little bit. The Sachinanda Gauranga Mahaprabhu was Radha and Krishna combined together in one body. Radha Krishna Eki Bhutanga. Anga means a limb of the body or the body, Bhutanga. They become one body. That means in Gauranga Swarup, two opposites are combined. And what are those two opposites? And this is a really, really amazing thing. And she said comments, he says this has a very deep purport. There are two opposites in one container, Sambhog and Vipralamba. When union and separation are combined together, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's saying, what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What is this Bhakti Naipunya? That's when Madhanakya Mahabhava Mayi, Radharani, who's Mahabhava Chintamani Swarup, the embodiment of Mahabhav, and Krishna, who's Rasaraj Purna Brahma Rajendra Nandana Sri Krishna Swayam Bhagavan, when they combine together. So it's not just Radha and Krishna, but it's these particular qualities of them. Just like all of us have different qualities. Someone may see you in the library when you're studying for school and they know you as a bookworm. Someone else knows that you like to hit the dance floor and really shake a leg, as they say. Someone else knows that you like to go swimming, and someone else, different persons see different aspects of us. And so Radharani and Krishna, they have unlimited personalities. Those personalities manifest in different forms as different devotees. From Radharani comes all the different gopis of Braj, and then all the different queens in Dwarka, and all the different Lakshmis in Vaikuntha. But there's a particular mood of Radharani, a particular aspect of Radharani when we speak about this Bhakti Naipunya, when we speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that particular aspect is that Radharani is Madhanakya Mahabhava Mayi. She's the embodiment of Madhanakya Mahabhav. So that's a very huge subject. We may go into that more in detail in some other session. But a little briefly, just to give a kind of an overview, when we speak about Madhurya Ras, there's different levels. And Rupa Goswami is described Sneha Man, Pranaya Rag, Anurag Bhav, Ruda Mahabhav, Adi Ruda Mahabhav, Modanaki Mahabhav, and Madanaki Mahabhav. And Madanaki Mahabhav is the last limit. And it's that Madanaki Mahabhav in which, if we try to describe this Madhanaki Mahabhav, where both union and separation are combined together. It's Madhanaki Mahabhav we find in the 47th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, the Brahma Gita, which we've been speaking about for a long time, which we stopped our classes a month or so ago, and I'm hoping to continue again. But that Madhanaki Mahabhav is when Radharani is feeling the most intense pangs of separation, which are known as Sudara Prabhas. There's four different types of separation. Prabhas means when Krishna goes to some other place. There's two types of Prabhas, Dura Prabhas and Sudara Prabhas. When Krishna goes to Mathura Dwarka, that's called Mathura Prabhas or Dwarka Prabhas. And when he goes there, Radharani doesn't know if she is ever going to see him again. So there's this very, very intense mood of separation. But at the same time, in a very paradoxical way, her emotions are so intense. There's a meeting of Radha and Krishna at that time in that Madhanaki Mahabhav. And that's therefore we read Radharani speaking to the bumblebee, and some people say that Krishna personally came as that bumblebee. Jiva Goswami speaks some things about that. There's union and separation at the same time. That's Madhanaki Mahabhav. So when you have that aspect of Madhanaki Mahabhav, and you combine that together with Rasaraj Purna Brahma Brajenda Nandan Sri Krishna Swayam Bhagavan, those two together, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's important, this chapter, the importance of it is to help us understand how Radha and Krishna are one, and what aspect of Radharani and what aspect of Krishna. So we mentioned something about how Radharani is Madhanaki Mahabhava Mayi, or Mahabhava Chintamani Swarup. Krishna is Rasaraj Purna Brahma Brajenda Nandana Sri Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. This aspect of Krishna in particular, as Rasaraj. Rasaraj is a name for Krishna when he's with the gopis. We don't call Krishna Rasaraj when he's with Sridham and Sudam, the cowherd boys, or when he's with Nanda and Yashoda, or Ratak and Patrak, his servitors. But only he's the king of all rasas, Rasaraj, when he's with the gopis. Purna Brahma means that he's the last limit of Brahman. That Purna Brahma is this Krishna who's Rasaraj, because this is the highest limit of the absolute truth. When Krishna dances with the gopis, when Krishna's with the gopis, he's Brajenda Nandana. He's a son of the king of Braj. He has a beautiful, wonderful form of Krishna. The gopis like to think of him as the son of Nanda Maharaj. He's Sri Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. He's Swayam Bhagavan. He's the source of all different avatars, and he's Sri Krishna. He's the all-attractive, and combined with Sri, who means Srimati Radharani. So let's see, why don't we go ahead and read something more here. Chaitanya, would you like to read? Now here comes the topic of union. Krishna Kon, are you there? You could read also, maybe? Okay, why don't we have Krishna Kun read? I'm going to test my microphone. So you guys give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you can hear it good.
Now here comes the topic of union, because combination means union. In Gaudiya Vaishnava language, union is called sambhog. In Ujjvala Nilamani, 4 types of sambhoga are mentioned. One type is Samriddhiman Sambhog, a fully enriched type of union. In that Samriddhiman Sambhog, Shringara Rasaraj Shri Krishna and Radha combine together and then appear as Gauranga Shri Krishna Chaitanya. The Hladini Shakti is Krishna's pleasure potency. So Hladini Shakti Swarup Radha is the embodiment of the pleasure potency. And she is the embodiment of Madanakya Mahabhav, the last limit of Prema Bhakti. This Madanakya Mahabhava is like an unlimited ocean in which there are such high waves, Uttala Taranga. So Krishna accepted that mood and appeared as Gauranga. In Vraja Leela there are 2 bodies, Rasaraj Shri Krishna and Mahabhava Mai Radha. But in Gaura Leela there is one body. Rasaraj Shri Krishna and Mahabhava Mai Radha combined together. The Gaura is the combined form of Shringara Rasaraj Shri Krishna and Mahabhava Mai Radha. Still, Radha Bhav is predominating. Gaura Kopi Vraja Viharini Bhava Varna Chakashti. Gaura feels the acute pangs of separation from Krishna in the mood of the damsels of Vrajabhumi, Vraja Viharini. That means Radha Bhav is predominating. Vraja Viharini Radha feels the acute pangs of separation from Krishna. When that feeling assumes a body, that is Gaura.
So I'd like to, at this point, turn now to a little chart that I put together myself, which I can share if anybody would like. This is, by the way, based on purport from Prabhupada's CC, Madhya Lila, chapter 23, text 62, and primarily from the last chapter of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Ujjvala Nilamani Kirana. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes that some people, they're not so good with Sanskrit grammar. And Ujjvala Nilamani, there's so much complicated Sanskrit grammar. So for people who can't deal with all that Sanskrit grammar, he's written a simple book, a Kiran. Kiran means a ray of light, of the Ujjvala Nilamani. The Ujjvala Nilamani is Rupa Goswami's book, where he speaks about the love of the gopis. And in this Kiran, he's summarized it in a very brief way. It's a very short book, and it's very, very dear to all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So I've taken these 2 sources, and I put together a kind of chart of the subject matter. I'm going to put this on the screen here for everybody. You can look and see. And we're going to discuss it a little bit. These 4 different types of separation and 4 different types of union. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Rupa Goswami say that there's 2 basic divisions of Shringara Ras, or Krishna's love between the consorts, of the gopis, or the wives, and Krishna himself. And that's Vipralamba and Sambhog. There's 4 types of separation. Purvarag. Purvarag means when before. Purva means before. Raga means attraction. So before they've actually met, they're hearing about each other. In Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhav, he speaks about this in a beautiful way, how the famous verse, which also appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Srimati Radharani, she becomes so disturbed, she decides she's going to commit suicide. Her girlfriends are very horrified. What are you thinking? It's such a terrible thing for? She said, well, how can I live? I'm in love with 3 different men. And any chaste woman can't live like that. Well, who are these 3? Well, there's this one boy named Krishna, his name. And there's another boy who plays a flute. And there's another boy, I see his picture, Chitra Saki made a picture of him, and I see that picture, and I'm in love with all three boys. So I want to kill myself. Radharani's not yet met Krishna. And Lalita tells her it's okay, these are all three the same person. And so this is an example of Purvarag. And then Man means some sulkiness. And as we'll hear later on, there's Haitaki Man and Ahaitaki Man, two divisions, with a cause and without a cause. Sometimes Krishna, he's comes late. He's supposed to meet with Radharani at, 11 o'clock at night, and he comes about 5 o'clock in the morning. And he's got lipstick on his face and kajal and things. And Radharani becomes really, really angry. So that's Haitaki Man. That's anger with a cause. But there's also Ahaitaki Man. She just decides to become angry. And and Ujjwala, we see that women have this right. They can be angry for no reason. God gave them that right. You can't complain about it. It's just the way it goes. Anyway, sometimes Krishna, he's glorifying Radharani. One pastime comes to my mind. And he says, my dear Radhika, your face is as beautiful as a full moon. And Radharani becomes so furious with Krishna, she won't talk with him. And he said, well, what did I do? I said, on the moon, don't you see those marks, the pock marks on the moon? You're trying to say that my face has all these pock marks on it? No. I'm and Krishna can't say anything. Radharani's just completely furious with him. So that's Haitaki and Ahaitaki Man, two types. Prema Vaichitya is a very astonishing state when the lover and the beloved are together, but they're feeling separation. Rupa Goswami elaborates on that in Lalita Madhav, in the discussion of Nava Vrindavan Sangam, how Radha and Krishna meet in the Nava Vrindavan garden in Dwarka, and Krishna acts like a deity, acts like a statue. There's a statue there, it was created by Vishvakarma, and Radharani, who she was staying, it's a long story, not knowing that Krishna was still present, she was staying in that garden, worshipping this deity. Krishna comes and sees somebody's worshiping this deity. Who's doing this? Then he hears someone coming. He tells his friend Madhu Mangal, hey, take the deity and put him in the bushes. And then Krishna stands there like the deity. And Radharani comes and she thinks that's the deity. And she starts offering prayers. And Krishna starts crying because he thought, wow, Vishwakarma did such an amazing job. It's like Disney World, in Disney World, you have those things, I don't know what you call them, but it looks like a person's there, some light and cameras or something. He thought Vishwakarma did something like that. And he thought that Radharani was some kind of robot or something. And he began speaking to her, and then Radharani thought, wow, what an amazing deity this is. A deity can actually speak. So they're together, but they're feeling separation. That's Prema Vaichitya. And there's other examples of that also. And we spoke already about Prabhas, and two types of Prabhas, Dura Prabhas and Sudura Prabhas. When Krishna goes to Kamyavan or some forest in Braj for the day, and Radharani and the gopis can't see him, they feel separation. That's Dura Prabhas. But when Krishna goes to Mathura, Dwarka, they don't know if they're ever going to see him again. That's Sudura Prabhas. So then, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur speaks about 10 stages of Purvarag, which we've highlighted here. And I'm not going to speak about these. We gave some classes on these already. It would take us too much time today. But these generally, I spoke about them as symptoms of Sudura Prabhas. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives credence to both. But he also says these are 10 stages of Purvarag, where someone has greed, they become agitated, they can't sleep, they stop eating, they become very, very thin, they become stunned in ecstasy, they become confused and perplexed, they become sick, they become mad, they fall unconscious, and finally they have all the symptoms of death. So then we're speaking about Man. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur describes 6 different aspects of Man, which I'm not going to speak about right now. I can share this chart with anyone who would like. And then he speaks about something about Prema Vaichitya and about Prabhas. We've already discussed those two. But then Srila Prabhupada, this is from Prabhupada's purport to Madhya Lila chapter 23, text 62, which is also in the same document here. In the purport, Prabhupada describes these 4 types of sambhog. Now, if we want to understand union, we have to understand separation. You can't just as if you want to explain to someone what darkness is like or what the sunshine is like, you can't describe only one of them. You have to describe both of them. So in the same way, it's not possible to describe union unless you have an understanding of separation. The two work together. And therefore, Guru Maharaj, he said that this is the Vipalamba Tata, or the embankment of separation. And this Prema Dhara, this river of love, which has two embankments, the Sambhog Tata, the embankment of union, and the Vipalamba Tata, the embankment of separation. So our acharyas have described these four types of separation, which we just briefly covered over. And then they speak about four types of sambhog. Now these four types of sambhog, they correspond to the four types of vipralamba. And you can see this in Prabhupada's purport here. This is straight from Prabhupada's purport, this numbers in there. The first is Purvarag Anantara. After Purvarag, this sambhog is there. And this sambhog is called Sankshipta. Sankshipta in Sanskrit means that it's very, very brief. So the Purvarag separation is there, and then Radha and Krishna get to see each other. Or maybe they have a few words they exchange, but it's very brief, Sankshipta. So that's union, it's a particular type of union, which is based on this particular type of separation. It's Purvarag Anantara, it takes place after Purvarag, and it's called Sankshipta. And the second is Mana Anantara. Anantara means afterwards or following. So the first is following Purvarag, second is following Man, third is following Prabhas, and the fourth is mentioned as following Sudura Prabhas. Because Prema Vaichitya, there's union. So how can you speak about that's union in separation already? So there's no particular type of union for Prema Vaichitya. So the second is Mananantara, when Radharani becomes angry, and that's called encroached or sankirna. It's very difficult to get. It's something very, very hard. And then Kinchit Dura Prabhasanantara, when Krishna goes away, as we mentioned, to Kamyavan or some forest or something, and then the gopis meet with him afterwards, that's sampana. Sampana means that it's enriched, it's accomplished. That's the sampana sambhog. Then the Sudura Prabhasanantara, or union which takes place after Sudura Prabhas. And that union is the topmost type of union. That's Samriddhiman Sambhog. That's fully enriched union. So that Samriddhiman Sambhog can only take place after Sudura Prabhas. So when we speak about Radha and Krishna becoming one as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it means Madanaki Mahabhavamayi Radha and Sringara Rasaraj Krishna, who's Purna Brahma. It means the Samriddhiman Sambhog, and it means the Sudura Prabhas. Sudura Prabhas and Samriddhiman Sambhog. These two opposites in one container. That's Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So let's go back now to our embankment of separation. Okay, because I have this greed. I'd like to hear something from the voice of Chaitanya Prabhu, because he's very sweet. So if you could read one paragraph for us, and we can finish up our program today from Most Munificent. It's appropriate that you read the Most Munificent part because it's obvious.
Most Munificent. The ocean of pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is immeasurable and unfathomable. Who can take the courage to measure that great ocean? It is not possible to dip into that great ocean, but its sweet, mellow flavors attract my mind. I therefore stand at the shore of that great ocean to try and taste but a drop of it. Sudha Prema Sukha Sindhu, Paitara Eka Bindu, Sai Bindu Jagat Vibhaya. Kahi bara yogyanaya, tatapi bolakaya, kahila va keba patiyaya. Unalloyed love of Krishna is like the ocean of happiness. If someone gets one drop of it, the whole world can drown in that drop. It is not befitting to express such love of God, yet a madman must speak. However, even though he speaks, no one can believe him.
This is what
Such
we
is
this is what we put on the back cover of the first edition of Embankment of Separation. This verse, such a nice verse. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and finish this paragraph? Such as one drop.
Such is one drop, what to speak of the ocean. Only one drop of the ocean of Gaur Leela can inundate the whole universe with Prem. Krishna Prem is such an invaluable asset, but unless one takes shelter at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he cannot have it. In Gaur Leela, you will find immeasurable mercifulness. The most astounding special characteristic of Gaur Leela is Mahaprabhu's wonderful loving attitude towards his followers. If you accumulate all the material and spiritual opulences in one place, still it is not equal to one particle of that Mahabhav. That Dan asset is solely possessed by Radharani. It is not available with anyone else. Even Krishna has no such asset. Krishna is devoid of it. So Krishna thought of what to do. Krishna is the supreme thief, very expert in stealing. He thought, I will steal it. So entering into the heart of Radharani, Krishna stole it and kept it in his heart. Thereby, he also stole the complexion of Radharani and became golden. Krishna is Shringar Rasaraj, king of the conjugal mellow, but that remains as inside. Outside is Gaura, with the complexion of Radharani. Thereby, he fulfills his three types of desires. He relished the mellow of his own beauty and distributed it indiscriminately, Mahavadanyaya.
So let me just make a few comments about this, and then I'd like to open up and ask the devotees for some reflections or anything. Embankment of Separation is a book about love. It's a book to help us to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If we have a loving relationship with someone, you can judge the depth of that relationship by how well you understand the heart of the beloved. If a woman has diabetes and she hates sweets, but the boy wants to give her chocolates because he thinks chocolates are really nice and whatever, and he buys a big giant box of chocolates for her, she may become annoyed with that. Love means that we should understand the heart of that personality. But that's a very difficult subject matter. In the material world, everyone is going after trying to understand the heart of someone in a material relationship, husband and wife, servant and master, someone's working for their boss, a son and mother, father and daughter, or friendship. In each one of these relationships, to the extent that we understand our bro, our friend, our mother, our father, we understand their heart, that indicates the depth of our relationship. We have a fascination with these kind of things because it's a kind of Atmavanmanate Jagat, where we see the whole universe around me. Generally, we love someone because they love us. And on Facebook, you'll see they have all these little videos of some guy walking up to a girl on the street and telling her, wow, you're just the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I'm madly in love with you. And this girl who's never met this guy before, who's like a complete creep, has probably been in and out of jail for rape 100 times or something. He's a real bad character. This girl says, oh, really? Oh, well, thank you. Because we were looking for someone to love us. And if someone comes and says, I love you, then automatically we love them. That's our material conception of love. And we're very much enamored with that. And we're very, very interested in that. And that's all of the movies and all the books and all the songs and everything that goes on in this world. But then when we come and we speak about spiritual love, people say, oh my God, that's really technical. That's really complicated. I can't understand that. We don't have patience for that subject. We don't have interest in that subject. We only have interest in the material, nasty aspect of it. So Guru Maharaj here is not just coming out and saying that we should love God. Our Gaudiya Vaishnavas are not just coming out and saying you should love Krishna, like sometimes the Christians or someone, not to badmouth our Christian brothers. They're also transcendentalists, and we respect them. But just for someone to come and say, I love God, what does it mean? Do you love him like a friend? Do you love him like a servant? Do you love him like a daughter or a mother? Do you snehaman pranaya raga? What kind of love do you have for them? There's so many different types of love. And so it's not enough just to say I love them, nor is it enough just to say they're really a special person. If a boy comes and says to a girl and says, I love you, then the girl will say, well, what do you love about me? And he just says, well, I just love you. You're just say, no, tell me. Well, he should say, well, I like your hair. I like the way you play chess. I like the way you dance. I like the way you sing. I like the way you walk. I like your personality. I like this and that. We want to know the specific qualities of that person. So it's amazing to me that we're so absorbed in those things with our girlfriend, with our husband or wife, with our children, with our parents. We're fascinated by their character, but we have no interest in the character of God. And even we may consider ourselves to be a religious person, but if you start talking about all these things, someone says, oh my God, Prabhu, that's just so technical. That's just so complicated. I can't get my head into it. But it's just the qualities of these persons. If we just say you should love Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you should love Radha Krishna, it's not enough. We need to know, why should we love them? How can we love them? What kind of Rup, Guna, and Leela do they have? What is their form like? What are their qualities like? What are their pastimes like? What are their entourage and their friends like? What is their abode like? And when we find out all those details about them, then we become attracted to them. So I'm just saying all this because if all of this that we're speaking to that comes across very technical and things, then we should analyze our own heart. Why is it that I find the movie Love Story to be so fascinating, or this romantic movie, this or that, or these romantic exchanges I have with different people to be fascinating and engrossing, but I'm not interested in this subject matter. It indicates something about our consciousness. So I'm going to stop there, and next week I think we'll continue. I'm not going to promise anything next week. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have an operation on Wednesday. It's not a big operation, it's just for a hernia, and the doctors have said I should be on my feet again in a few days, although different doctors are saying different things. Some of them are saying like in 4 or 5 days I should be lifting weights and running around, and they didn't say lifting weights. Krishna Kun's going to get upset with me, but doing stuff. Other doctors told us that it may take as long as 6 weeks before we're up and at it again. So I can't really say. That'll be on Wednesday, but I'm hoping, I think probably on Sunday I'll be up and around. We'll let everybody know. So anyway, I want to stop here, and I want to now ask different devotees. Hemanti, why don't you start? Do you have anything you'd like to share? Any reflections from our discussion today? Is it too technical?
Thank you as always for a very nice, insightful, and revealing class. I think what especially stuck out for me was the difference between like Krishna Leela and Gaura Leela and the different flavor. And I think what I'm also going to remember is how with Krishna there's formality, but with Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't stand on formality. There's that informality. And I was last week on Wednesday, and you recover nicely.
Yeah, this is an important point that you touched on. It's one of the reasons why Krishna came. And he says in Adi Lila chapter 3, Krishna speaking, Kaviraj Goswami is repeating the words of Krishna. Krishna's thinking, everybody worships me with so much formality. They say, excuse me, sir. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that the devotees were addressing Jagannath as Manima. Manima is kind of like saying, excuse me, sir. Hello, excuse me, madam. Mataji, by being so formal. And that formality is not so sweet. No girl would like to marry a guy who says, excuse me, ma'am. Every time he talks, he says, excuse me, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Here you go. So what is that? And how close close can we come to a friend who feels that way also? Now, we should be careful and not speculate, like Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta call it the Sahaja mood, that oh, now I'm very intimate with Krishna, and just as the gopis, they chastise Krishna, so I'm also going to chastise Krishna. We don't have that kind of adhikar, but we should hear about these things and know, because this will give us some inspiration where to go. So, thank you, Himati. Do you want to add anything else?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for taking part. Glad you're here today. We miss Krishna Balaram Prabhu and his wife. If you're watching this on the video, we're talking about you. Viren Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Sure. Yeah, quite a loaded class today. So I think there's a couple of things that stand out for me. The one about Praman, where you said it's the proof. And I actually particularly liked what your Guru Maharaj said, that, if you can't quote Shastra, then don't tell them you're my disciple. That's actually something that's, it's a deep statement. It's very deep, and it just shows, when I think about it, that, Maharaj was very serious about his disciples knowing Shastra and being able to quote it. Sorry, my mom's is busy there in the background. If you're hearing the crackling noise, I apologize for that. Busy taking out a biscuit for herself. Okay, then, there was another thing, another point that stood out was when you spoke about Gauranga Leela, where it's a more merciful leader. And what came to mind was Jagai and Madai. And I just remembered how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very merciful to Jagai and Madai, despite all their atrocities that they committed, and then even the last severe one where they'd actually offended Nityananda Prabhu. Another point that I really appreciated, and I think that's kind of hit home and I need to deliberate more on, is that real preaching means by our behavior. And that is such an important point. So that's something that also stands out. The one point that I still need to unpack a little more, and I'm hoping, so it's when we always speak about Radha and Krishna being one, yet they have taken two forms to enjoy the pastimes. And the thing is, like, my mind keeps on going. So is it, when we talk about them being one, are we referring to the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Or and that's a point that's always been a bit hazy for me. So that's also something that I'm hoping I can unpack and understand a little more through our discourses as we go forward.
If you read it in the last part of Madhya Lila chapter 8 in Ramananda Samvad, there's quite a bit of discussion about this. It's an important subject matter, and I stress a certain thing, how Radha and Krishna are different. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but in the mood of Radha, and we gave some pramanas for that. I'm not trying to present, I want to be very careful how I put this. My purpose was not to present something as the absolute truth. I was just presenting a possible conception. And the reason why I presented it was simply as an exercise to try to encourage everyone to think about it. And also to use as an example that when we do discuss these things, I think it's a huge mistake if we walk into the room with the abhimana, the attitude that what I know is the absolute. My Gurudev said this, he said it, I believe it, that settles it. They say that about, I see in the stickers in America, the Christians say that about Jesus. We believe, my conception of what my Gurudev said, I believe it, and that settles it. But my Gurudev may have told me that you cannot take a bigger number from a smaller number, because I'm a second grade math student and I can't understand negative numbers. But then later on, when I go to another higher level of school, the teacher starts teaching us about negative numbers, and then I become angry. And I say, you're completely bogus. My first grade teacher told me you cannot take a bigger number from a smaller number. So we have to be very, very careful. This topic is meant to be pratyakša. And there's certain things that we don't compromise about the Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. four regulated principles, and certain things like that. Those are unquestionably, we don't compromise those things. But certain other things, there is difference of opinion sometimes amongst Vaishnavas. And I say I'm just suggesting a pathway of behavior when we deal with those different Vaishnavas, when we deal with these different subject matters, that is far, far healthier for our Sangha and for ourselves as individuals to not try to falsely, proudly present that I know everything because my Gurudev said this. I've seen it happen too many times. And there's so many arguments. Most of the arguments that you see within the Gaudiya Vaishnava community today fall in this kind of category where somebody thinks that they understand something that they really don't. And then they're trying to present that their understanding is the absolute understanding and everybody else should have the same understanding. And I don't need to mention all the different controversies that'll disturb our life heirs. But there's so many different understandings out there. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. Bana Biharni, do you want to share anything with us today?
Hare Krishna.
Any prizes?
I was also thinking about something similar to what the other devotees said, that you brought up this example that if you're unclean, or maybe you get the example of being in a hospital and you're unclean, that the deity will not come to you. You can't approach the deity if you're unclean, but the holy name will come to you. I liked that point a lot. Helped me appreciate the holy name, thinking about that. And then I was also appreciating what you were just saying at the end there, that it's not enough to say, I love Radha and Krishna, I love Mahaprabhu, but we have to deeply understand their qualities and their Leela and who they are. So it's a very high thing, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you're a beautiful young lady. What if you get a letter from some boy and says, you know, I heard about you, and I'm madly in love with you, and I want to marry you. Never, and he's writing you from Japan or something, and somebody's never met you. How do you feel? But that's really weird, isn't it? That's a bizarre. You feel offensive about it practically. So we want to enter into a personal, loving relationship with someone, with Radha and Krishna. And it's not just that we're just going to walk into the room and say, here I am, I love you. Well, what do you love about me? I don't know. Just they told me I should love you, so I do. I really love you. It has no meaning. But if someone contacts and they say, you know, just your character, the way you look, the way you dress, the way you did this and that, those things are so attractive, but then we'll appreciate that. So it's the same principle. I appreciate your comment about how you like this point about the difference between Nam and Nami, and how Krishna will come to us in the form of his name, but not in the form of the deity if we're dirty. And so the example, let's remember, that was being used is that this is the same difference between Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That Krishna, we can't have access to him unless we have some qualification. But the deity we can't, but the holy name we can. And similarly with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can have some access. But as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta discusses, and we spoke about this in some previous sessions, we can't separate the associates of Mahaprabhu from Mahaprabhu. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in his beautiful language, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an extended subject. and if we want to understand him, we have to also understand his associates. And so those associates, that means Guru. And there's no question of approaching Mahaprabhu unless we approach Guru. And if we approach Guru, but then we think, I don't need the Vaishnavas. I don't need to have any Sangha with anyone. And Guru also won't be pleased. We won't really come close to Gurudev. We need the Vaishnavas are so very, very important. There's some reflections on your reflection. You want to add anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you for taking part today. Ujjwala, is it okay if Ujjwala says something?
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you for this Katha, Prabhu. Actually, it's difficult to find one thing to reflect on. And I think that's a marker of enriching kata. But the thing that struck me the most profoundly this session is the fact that I came with a particular question from last session, and the majority of this session was quite a poignant answer to that. I was going to ask you how you deal with the messiness of Gora Lila and Gora Tattva. And I know that's what this book is mostly about, but especially in light of pramanas. And I found myself in my own study and in my search in Krishna consciousness falling back to the Bhagavatam as the foundation of where pramanas come. And I think that's quite natural, and it's how the Goswamis founded Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement systematically. And I think there's been a certain recalcitrance in me to enter, out of respect, to enter into the depth of Mahaprabhu's Leela, because from a philosophical perspective, it's a little scary. As you brought up in the class, in 2 instances, there are differences of opinion about what it really means that Radha and Krishna are one. There are just many unknowns in Mahaprabhu's Leela. And I just really appreciated the answer that you gave, in that we should hold ourselves back a little bit and keep kind of, in the way I can paraphrase it, keep a sense of wonder and keep a kind of healthy reservedness until we actually have the experience there, because these things are supposed to be directly experienced. So I was kind of blown away by the fact that the answer came before I asked the question. And I was reflecting on Srila Prabhupada saying Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study, because the nature of postgraduate studies is that you're usually dealing with things that aren't neatly answered. Before that, in school, you're studying things that everyone else has already discovered, and you're studying axioms, and you're studying the roots of something. And you can come to somebody else and speak on that basis with surety. But the realm of Chaitanya Leela is a realm of a little bit unsurety, it seems, and it's meant for postgraduate study and contemplation. So thank you for putting us through that exercise there, as you said, in thinking. And yeah, I found it very enlivening.
We were speaking yesterday about the Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We had a session here in Debrecen, Hungary. And to not be too cliche, but we spoke about something with which many people make reference to it in a joking kind of way, that no one can understand the mind of a woman. And why do we say that so much? There's some truth in that. Because the devotee, who can understand the mind of a devotee? And who's the topmost devotee is Srimati Radharani. So we have this expression, who can understand the mind of a woman? But really that's about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna wants to understand the mind of Radharani, the topmost feminine mind. And he's come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for this. So it's, as you're mentioning, it's a difficult subject to understand, the mind of a woman. It's a very, very difficult subject. And why is that a difficult thing to understand? Because they're rooted in emotion, and they'll go different ways, and what they may come up with is not always logical to a male mind anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Srimati Radharani. She has this ahoitaki man. She becomes angry for no reason and doesn't want to see Krishna anymore. So Krishna wants to understand that mood of Radharani. He wants to understand the madness of Radharani, that Madanaki Mahabhava that she experiences during the Brahma Regit when Krishna's gone, the height of her ecstasy. And so by definition, by nature, we can understand. Everybody says that who can understand the mind of a woman? And then that's a fact. Well, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the epitome. So we're not going to be able to understand it. It's a very difficult thing to understand. And in fact, as a woman will say to you, she'll go on like this and that, and the man will typically say, well, I think that what you should do, you'll solve your problem if you do more of this or more of that. And the woman just becomes really frustrated. So you don't understand me. And he's like, what do you mean I don't understand you? I'm trying to solve the problem. But women just want someone to hear them because they want to share that emotion. And there's been so many from Mars and Women from Venus books and stuff on that subject matter. But ultimately, that's really the subject matter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the subject matter of Radha and Krishna. Radharani, she just does things that makes no sense whatsoever sometimes. And that's her right, because she's guided by emotions. And those emotions are so rich, Krishna himself wants to understand them. And so he comes as Gaura Leela, which is a very feminine type of Leela, but not feminine in the Western feministic idea at all. Gaudiya Vaishnavas are the original feminists, but not like the mundane Western feminists. We'll just say that in case somebody's watching. You're going to get upset with me about feminism. I'm not a feminist like the Westerners. Anyway, that's my reflection on yours. You want to add anything else, Ujjwala?
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. The last point that I liked, actually, I will add one more thing, is the last thing that you said about this point about love, and Vanna also reflected on it. I like that very much. You were saying that we are attracted to people who appeal to us, and they'll say, I love you. And so therefore I love you because you love me. And I was thinking of that. You cited, the cheapness with which other world traditions will throw about love. I love God. Christians will say, I love God. And it just dawned on me that, yeah, it's not such a cheap thing. And it's kind of like God's original hook that, we say, well, you should love God because he loves you. And then many, many traditions, many people, I won't even say traditions, many people go, oh, that makes sense. I'll do that. But it's kind of the same hook that you're pointing out, that's what we're running around this world doing. We're looking for somebody to say, I love you. And then I'll say, I love you back. But there's something much deeper. There's something much deeper in real love and in actually wanting to sacrifice for someone, wanting to know someone, being addicted to understanding everything about them. And so I just appreciate how you highlighted that, and that really that's the quest, so to speak, that we're on as spiritual practitioners, is getting to know someone and then falling headlong in love with them and wanting to be around them and wanting to be with them and serve them, and Krishna, Radha and Krishna. So I appreciated that point.
Yeah, in the material world, we see shallow relationships are characterized by one or both persons who are really not interested in the other person's mentality, what they want or what they don't want. They're just completely thinking of themselves. And that's mundane religion, where please give me some bread, give me this, give me that, give me a woman. That God is just there to provide for me, or a man is just thinking the wife is just there to cook for me and clean the house, and that's just why God created her, just to do all those things. And he can't think, oh my God, she's a person too. She has desires and things, and if there's a relationship like that, that's very disgusting. We want to avoid that. Anyway, thank you, Prabhuji. I always like your comments; they're very thoughtful. Anybody else here in the room want to share anything? Andy, do you want to share anything? Anybody?
I just wanted to thank you.
Okay. Speak loud, though. You speak so soft.
Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you for having me here.
Thank you for the. Andy's been so kind to us. She picks flowers every day for Giri Raj, and better than that, she feeds us when we go to the restaurant every day. And she always gives us a piece of pie or cake or something. It's really she's a very special person. Anybody else here in the room want to share anything? Krishna, no? Okay. All right. Chaitanya Prabhu, do you have anything you want to sew everything up with? Any words of wisdom for us?
I concur. There's so many things to talk about, actually, Prabhu. It's phenomenal. But I do want to appreciate the language that's also kind of used on throughout these descriptions, particularly today. I mean, even this concept of, if you take this last element of bhakti and you add it to Krishna, you're just kind of trying to conceptualize this, and how they put this into words is just something phenomenal. And then you're taking the concept again of Krishna, and I think you touched on it as being all attractive. And then now you're adding some more, and it's becoming more attractive because of that, in a sense. And what's that more attractive bit is that mercy that's there. And, you know, one of the things that I did when I relinquished my last service was to start reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. A little bit different to you, Chvala Prabhu. I'm not a Pramans person at all, to be honest. I just thought, okay, this is the cool book to read, to be honest, because Lord Chaitanya looks so attractive in some ways. And one of the themes that you do see is that mercy coming through in such a strong way, because you see some elements where, and I may need to be corrected on this one, but one of the elements around where, you know, it's been quoted that the Mayavadis can't be, you know, you shouldn't go anywhere near them, they're worse than anybody else, and that type of flavor that's there. And then he goes and he liberates all the Mayavadi sannyasis that are there, and you go, okay, you know, how is this possible that he's really going and liberating all these people who are not even supposed to be close to any devotee? And you begin to realize how merciful he would be that he's going in this kind of way. So I was just trying to kind of look at that and just kind of recounting those, and just imagine that we sitting here as individuals again, getting a chance to even hear about these things is just something phenomenal, to be honest. There was the one thing, and on a personal Prabhu, on the section that you actually made me read, it's funny that you made me read that, and this element around tasting that one drop. It was interesting that about, maybe it must have been more than 10 years ago, I told my Guru Maharaj, no, I'm relishing tasting this Krishna consciousness. Obviously, it wasn't the real taste, it was mixed with whatever else was there. And I mentioned it to the effect of one drop or whatever else, and he told me one drop, and you know, that's something quite big. And to that effect, and he didn't really go too much into it. And now reading this, I'm kind of looking at again the language of this, that the one drop can drown the entire universe. And you're going, okay, sure, that one drop is something massive, you know. And where was I? What was it tasting? Then it wasn't that really that one drop, you know. So it just kind of puts you in perspective how far we need to really go to strive for that one drop.
Yeah, that one drop is more than an ocean for us. I was also reflecting on the discussion we had today, and how it's a little difficult. Many times it's a little difficult to comment on, because we've been covering a lot of things: 4 types of union, 4 types of separation. And if we just focus on one of them, on Purvarag, for example, and just we could have just one class about Purvarag, then it would probably be a lot more digestible, and we could really understand it. But because we want to make some time and go through things, we're running over these things a little quickly, and they're concepts which take some time to understand, each one of them. So I appreciate it. I wanted to ask you too, how is Parthasarathi Maharaj doing?
Yes, he's. They're hoping that he'll get discharged. They sent a message that he's doing okay. There's not much pain or anything of that sort, so he's okay like that. Obviously, he's hankering that he's not being able to follow his schedule and things like that. That's about the details that we have. We don't have much more details around it.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. You know your godbrother Gora?
Yeah.
He's in New Zealand. Yeah. We have another sangha that we have on every Wednesday night, and he takes part in that one. Sometimes, I mean, at the time it's like 2:00 in the morning for him, or something crazy. 1:00 when we have the program. It's hard for him, but he oftentimes does. But he just wrote to me recently and said something about you.
Well, that's okay. Yeah.
It must be hard. That's not an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all very much. It's really, really wonderful to be able to have a chance to have you guys sangha and to share some thoughts about these topics. And I hope we'll see you next week. Otherwise, we'll discuss. You'll hear something about it between now and then. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakti ki, Bol Vancha Kalpa Rubishcha.